Good afternoon. This is Blog 15. It's a very unique time in the history of Trinidad and Tobago, and maybe from the inception I could tell you that the problems and the issues that are existing at this particular time, they're not unique to Trinidad and Tobago. Dishonesty seems to be one of the orders of this society, even in our own environment where I am at this time. We have found ourselves where there is a dishonesty, and it surrounds people who either take what doesn't belong to them or feel that they can get away with doing the wrong things in perpetuity. There's an old saying, every day is thieving day, one day is catching or police day. We don't know if that has evolved in the history of the politicians of Trinidad and Tobago. In my office here, it has not evolved yet, but it will evolve in time. Because whoever is guilty of doing wrong will, beyond any reasonable doubt, be caught. There are ways and means. So the same way people believe they can do things and get away, is that the same thing that we saw occurring in the debacle that has unfolded itself over the weekend in the Jack Warner's scenario. A couple of years ago, a BBC reporter or someone who was doing work for and on behalf of one of those institutions came to Trinidad and was trying to do an investigative piece of journalism, understanding of the demerits or the things that were going wrong at a football institution that was supposedly bigger than the Vatican. Untouchable, they say. And that was FIFA. And across many continents, this person continued to hound, as it would seem, one individual. The said individual that today in Trinidad and Tobago is plastered on the front page of every newspaper and held office in one of the most highly sophisticated areas, the National Security Ministry. Now, one can say that there is no evidence of proof at this time. But the same thing was applying many, many years ago when the Jennings reporter was really trying to unveil what really was going on. Could it have been since the days of Avalanche, and further endorsed by Sepp Blatter? What role does a man like Jack Warner play in that whole equation? Let's not forget 20 years in the institution and rising to the level of vice president of what would be considered a non-white man sport. And I don't want to make it seem as if though it's any kind of racial statement. It's not. It's just for figure of speech. Non-Caucasian would be the better word. And you see this man rise from a small country like Trinidad and Tobago up to the point where he was very influential in getting the number of spaces that were available for this part of the hemisphere in the World Cup to have been increased by at least one additional spot, allowing Trinidad and Tobago in its own right the opportunity to play on the biggest stage in the world. And got to the point where we had England almost for the whole game at 0-0, only to have been evaded by a header. Now, when you sit back and you think, how does a person who has had that creditation attached to them reach to such a low in such a short space of time? Is the magic word politics, or is the magic word professionalism? In many of the occasions, people keep speaking about the politics. But what comes first? The baby or the bathwater? The chicken or the egg? A good person serving at any capacity must first recognize that the profession takes precedence. And whether or not that has culminated in the minds of those who are still there serving in their capacity, one wonders whether or not any lessons will, have, or can be learned. What's the use of having all the money in the world, like Sanford already has recognized, like Madoff has recognized, like Michael Milken has recognized, when in truth and in fact you continue to have to look over your shoulders every time you go everywhere? Or you have to live in the society of someone going, as if to say, you are an incarcerated person in public. Now, I don't know about how people could live like that. I, for one, cannot live like that. So if the fundamentals is to come clean in order to get that sin washed away, as they will say in the Roman Catholic religious beliefs, do the penance, go to the priest and confess, then we need to really move on. Because in the end, stagnation will create destruction. And I don't know how many people understand what has happened, and whether it was intended for a man or for a country. Martyrs are things that play out in different ways. Some are cannibalized, some are criminalized, and some are left just in the open, rotting away as time passes. You, the people of Trinidad and Tobago, have got to come to your senses. This is about what is best for the country, and not what is best for the politician. It is no different than the famous redoing of the Constitution of Trinidad and Tobago. How many of you really want this Constitution redone? How many of you really understand what this Constitution is all about? How many of you would like to understand what this Constitution deals with? As we speak, only on the weekend, 6 or 7 young men were incarcerated from an area in East Trinidad for the purpose of loitering as far as the police is concerned. In checking, I understand that if you are in a group of more than 4 liming and you are told to move on and you do not move on, you are breaking the law. Because in order for you to lime in groups of more than that number, and maybe I am off by 1 or 2, you have to get permission. Now, while I understand in the area that they were picked up from, it's been considered a hotspot. I spoke to somebody today who said it was a hotspot 5 years ago. It's no longer a hotspot. So I do not know why there is this big variation. And then you try to understand the court process. 6 men for liming, incarcerated, and have now been told they have to put up a bond in surety, meaning you have to either come with cash or a property. $10,000 per person, when the fine for this particular offense, if they pleaded guilty, would have been $250. How could that ever make sense? Wonder what's the Chief Justice going to do, and he better look very carefully at Warner's situation, because he also is very responsible for either transformation or degradation, destruction or survival with respect. I will just have to wait on the sidelines and see. But truth be told, we are heading for a time where there is going to be many linens washed in public, unless that person believes that by staying silent, it will breed innocence. I don't think that the man who is under the microscope of both the political party and the media will allow it to continue. I'm disappointed in the financial institutions and the looseness in the information that has been publicized. And while the bank could easily come and say it didn't come from me, then you ask the question, who else it could come from? How safe is the information that is supposed to be sacred, especially if it has not been subpoenaed by the court? Does it tell you something? Well, if it didn't, let me tell you what it says. Money can virtually buy your life. And institutions have people inside of it that when they are dissatisfied and they see a way to make a change, they will definitely become entrepreneurs. Similar like what is being pontificated about Jack Warner and the Center of Excellence. I hope you enjoyed this week. I don't know what's going to happen in the coming week, but I want to report back about also the minister responsible for the social side, Ministry of the People. Lots of talk, but still trouble to get a food card, trouble to get a bus pass, and they are talking about bringing services closer to the people. I'll wait to see if he will publish the information so that there can be no disruption when people go forward to get what they want. He says a book is being made. Let's wait and see what takes place with that. That's it for this week. I'll be back next week, and hopefully the Warner matter will be like coals burnt out, and obviously only the ashes left. And that will be the ashes of the MSJ and yes, the PNM too. Because that's the only thing they are acting in this whole capacity as firewood. Until next week, I'm out.